The right conditions will guarantee growth. With the right conditions, growth can be guaranteed. I looked this up and applied this principle to some areas in life where we'd like to grow in particular skill. So I looked up how to maintain a consistent golf swing. And I found that there were 5 areas, 5 factors to focus on to maintain a consistent golf swing. Rhythm and tempo, balance and weight transfer, club face control, body rotation, and follow through. If you focus on these 5 factors, you can begin to develop a consistent golf swing. But maybe golf isn't your thing. So I wondered about the perfect pitch in baseball. In fact, I found 5 areas, 5 points of focus if you want to develop the perfect pitch. Maintain balance and posture. Use your legs, not your arm, to shift weight toward the plate. Stay relaxed and in control throughout the pitching motion. Keep your eyes on the target and avoid overthrowing, and follow through and be ready to field at the end of the motion. Maybe you don't like sports at all. Maybe you like gardening. I found 5 areas, 5 conditions if you want to begin a good garden. Stake out your garden space, dig your garden, get rid of the grass and weeds, raise your soil, and add amendments to get the soil right. In all of these areas, there are 5 conditions. And then you can grow. Grow in your skill as a golfer, grow in your skill as a pitcher, grow in your skill in gardening. And Jesus uses, in fact, the image of agriculture and sowing seeds in the gospel today. Jesus says that things grow in stages. He says first, you get the blade, then the grain, and then the ear, and then the ear of the grain. All of it grows in stages. Why is it growing at all? Because the conditions are right. It says he grows, he knows not how. Things grow because conditions are right. The seed is placed in the right conditions for growth to occur. So if the conditions are right, if the soil is right, there will be growth, guaranteed growth. As we enter into the dog days of summer, we be kind of getting lethargic, maybe in our spiritual lives, and vacation time is on the horizon. We can begin to wonder maybe how are we going to be growing spiritually? How do I know? If someone asked you, are you growing in holiness? Are you growing spiritually? Well, what would you say? We probably would have many, many answers to that question. The church actually teaches us that there are conditions, rather better obligations. These obligations are conditions that will guarantee our spiritual growth. They are the obligatory minimum, not the maximum, the minimum if we want to grow spiritually. How many of these do you think there are? 5, good job. There are 5. They're called the 5 precepts of the church. And now, as most of us have shut down and decided this is going to be a boring homily about the 5 precepts of the church, think again. Why? Why would the church give us 5 obligations? Why would the church try to make us do certain things to grow spiritually? And the Catechism says if we follow all 5 of these obligations, we are guaranteed to grow in love of God and of our neighbor. If we fulfill these 5 obligations, we're going to grow. There will be spiritual growth in our lives. So what are these 5? Good question, campers. As I go through them, some of them might seem very familiar. You might think, these are easy. I'm doing this. I don't even realize I'm doing this all the time. That's great. Remember, there are 5 of them. So if I go through these and some of them sound new, and those are probably the ones to focus on and to embed in our lives. The first precept, the first obligation, is to go to Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation and rest from servile labor, anything that would impede us from spending time in worship and rest. So precept, law, obligation number 1 is go and rest. Go to Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation and rest on those days from servile labor. Now, why would the church obligate that? Because in any real relationship, there are real responsibilities. Now, spouses know that they're obligated to spend time with each other, but they don't look at it as an obligation. They don't get married and go, well, I have to spend time with my spouse every day. I have to spend time with my children. This is absurd. This is because you are in a relationship, and there are things and responsibilities that just oblige us because we are in a relationship. So in a relationship with God and the church, through baptism, we are obliged. We have responsibilities in this relationship with the Lord. So the first is go to Mass on Sundays and holy days. Why? Because we are in relationship with God. We worship Him. We love Him. Precept number 2, go to confession at least once a year. Remember, these are the 5 indispensable minimum obligations. So go to confession at least once a year. Why? Because confession cleans out our spiritual clutter. We let Jesus bring us back when we've gone astray. And so the church is obliging us to say at least once a year, every soul should have gone to confession at least once. The third precept, receive communion at least once a year during the Easter season. The church wants us to be receiving the risen body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, because the Eucharist is the food of salvation, so she obliges us to receive communion during the Easter season at least once a year. Why would the church oblige that? That's our food of salvation. Now, this precept was in place during a time in the church when hardly anybody went to communion because people just thought there's no way I could ever be worthy to receive Holy Communion. And so the church actually had to put a precept in there and said, well, we're obliging you. You have to receive communion once a year during the Easter season. Of course, knowing you've already been to confession and have cleansed your soul, you're ready for communion. And so this precept should remind us that now we live in a day and age when most of us are going to communion all the time. We shouldn't take that for granted. We should realize that, well, I'm going to communion a lot. I hope I am living a life of holiness. I hope I'm making sure my soul is right with the Lord. And notice that the church doesn't say, go to Mass once a year. She says go to Mass every Sunday. It holds obligation. So even if you're not ready for communion, we still have to be at Mass. We still have to worship the Lord. We still have to be in union with Him through worship and divine liturgy. The fourth precept is observe the days of fast and abstinence. Okay, we probably know what those are. Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. Those are obligatory days of fasting and abstinence. The church isn't saying never fast on any other day. She's saying at least fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. These are obligatory days of fast and abstinence. And then, of course, during Lent, we have the Fridays that are mandatory abstinence days of meat. And you're saying, well, it used to be every Friday, didn't it? It did. And then in the 1960s, the bishops decided to change the character of the Friday penance and saying, it's optional to refrain from meat on those Fridays. You can still do that. But what isn't optional is a penitential practice on every Friday throughout the year, because Good Friday should be remembered by us every Friday throughout the entire calendar year. So some penance, maybe I'm giving up a favorite food or a drink or something, video games, whatever, some penance or something penitential going on in our lives as Catholics on Fridays. And it may still be giving up meat, but it ought to be reminding me of Good Friday. Why should the church oblige us to fast and abstain from things? Why bother? Because the church is teaching us we have to learn to say no to certain things so we can have a stronger yes to the Lord. I say no to certain things that get in the way and often get in the way of my relationship with God in order that my yes to Jesus will matter more. And so, yes, she obliges us to fast and abstain. Precept number 5, help provide for the material needs of the church. Help provide for the material needs of the church. The Catechism teaches us that all of us have a duty and an obligation to help provide for the material needs of the church. What does that mean, Father? I know, you're afraid, but it's true. Financial support of the parish. But we as baptized are to give and help provide for the material needs of the church, and the way we do that is by our giving. Now, the church doesn't say how much, doesn't give a percentage either, but the church does say we ought to provide in accordance with our own ability. What are we able to do? Now, in times of economic struggle and in times of inflation, this precept is probably one that can easily be set aside. You say, I can't do that right now. The times aren't good. It's not going to give. I'm going to wait till things get better. But the church doesn't give us conditions to not do these obligations. They're all obligatory. And so we have to show the Lord that we are detached even from our money, that we want to give to the church, give to the parish, to support our ministry, that all that happens in the life of a parish. That too isn't something Father just made up. It's an obligation. The 5th precept of the church, to give, to help, to provide for the material needs of the church. And so the church is saying that if we embrace all 5 of these obligations, then we're guaranteed to grow spiritually. Just like those other examples about the perfect pitch and the consistent golf swing and the fruitful garden, you can't have some of those principles in place without the others. And why? Because you won't grow. There won't be growth in the skill unless you have the 5 basics, the 5 indispensable minimums, the 5 pieces of the foundation in place. And from these, my brothers and sisters, grows our spiritual life. Many other things we embrace as Catholics that are fruitful and good and wonderful. But the church is saying, but these are the 5 basic obligations. And if we're not living these, then we're not growing spiritually. Our growth is stunted. And so we ask the Lord today to help us embrace all of these practices, these obligations, even the 5th one. And I give to this parish, I give a portion of my salary and have done that for years. And I don't do that to earn points, but my soul needs to give. I need to give in order to grow spiritually. And so let's ask the Lord to help us embrace all 5 of these and see that the church isn't trying to make life difficult. She's trying to make life fruitful. And so she loves us, and so she's saying, here are the 5 obligations. Here are the 5 indispensable minimum for you to begin this journey of faith. So let's see them all as not simply obligations, but great opportunities. And to ask the Lord to renew our hearts, if some of them have gone by the wayside, to recognize the Lord only desires us to grow spiritually, to grow and bear fruit. And if we do these and embrace these 5 obligations, then we will be guaranteed growth. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death.